admit it, some of you didn't think we'd be talking about England in the final of Euro 2020, but here we are. Is it 2020 or is it 21? Has anyone decided yet? So then, let's talk about it then, because of course there was the Denmark game. I didn't even do a review for it. I didn't do a video post-match reaction. My reaction was sort of a weird calm that came over me, which I wasn't expecting. I thought the performance from England was really good. Denmark feel a little unlucky because of the Sterling penalty, or the Harry Kane penalty. The Sterling, it's not a dive for me. Does he go down soft? Is it soft? Is it a bit easy? Yes. Okay, like he gets hit on the right leg and then the left leg, and it's probably enough for a player to go down. And for me, the summary of that sort of situation is, if he doesn't go down, do you say he should have gone down? You probably do. So it's one of those. I don't think it was as clear cut as, oh, he's dived, he's definitely cheating. It was just like he took the contact, made the most of it. And with VAR, it's not a clear and obvious error, and England were sort of lucky in that sense, maybe, that it wasn't punished. But, you know, it's one of those things. I don't think Sterling... I think Sterling would do it again, basically, and I think most national teams, and if it was your player, you'd probably think the same thing. I think when it happens against you, you feel like that is the softest thing I've seen in my entire life, other than maybe a sponge. But there we are. That's the way football goes sometimes. Sorry to Denmark, who put in a pretty good performance, actually, but I think ultimately just seemed too tired. It's an England side that Gareth Southgate has managed to keep fresh, what feels like something that's never happened before. I've never seen an England team look so relaxed and so calm in the last 5 minutes of a 120-minute game in my life. It was pleasing, and hopefully that's something you can take in to the Italy game. So of course we're happy that we've gone to the final. We're happy we've beaten Denmark, but how do we approach Italy now? And this is an interesting conversation. So for a lot of people, of course, we'll talk about my team that I would select for the final. It's not as straightforward this time as it previously has been, I don't think, actually, in that I don't really mind what he does. I don't think there is necessarily a right or a wrong way. I think it will come down to how he feels about Italy. And because of the way Italy play, Mancini's got them playing in a way which I've not seen an Italian team play before. There is almost... it's a bit more... Italy have always been quite crafty, and you've always known that against Italy you're going to have a tough game, they're going to defend excellently, and at times they're going to beat you through sort of just like destroying your soul a little bit. And Italy aren't like that so much anymore. There's this counter-attacking element to them that I've not really seen in an Italian team quite so much. They're not playing a five-at-the-back system, which they've played in international football for a long time in my memory. They've changed it up. They play this 4-3-3 that is very dynamic. Verratti, Barella, and whoever else they put in there. Sometimes it's Locatelli, right? They've had Jorginho sit at the base of it for the majority of the time, but they do tend to mix it up a little bit, and that'll be interesting to see how they try and stop England. And that's the key thing for me, is that as much as a lot of these videos have been sort of based around, well, how do England stop Italy doing Italian things? And we'll come to that. Italy have to worry about what England are going to do. They have to worry about the movement of Raheem Sterling. They have to worry about the movement of Harry Kane. Like that, he is the most interesting thing for me, because Kane has played against a lot of defensive midfielders in this tournament so far. Someone that can sit and sort of negotiate the back line. Jorginho's not really that player. Sure, he can do it, but Jorginho's role is to sit at the anchor of midfield and dictate the play. And we saw against Spain that when he's not doing that, he's not doing much, right? And that's not really his fault. Like I sort of talked about it on a podcast I do, 20 Good Minutes with Zealand, where he said, like, Spain are going to have the majority of the ball. It's just going to happen. And for a Spanish team that have so much of the ball, the fact they couldn't take their chances arguably let Italy off the hook. England have Harry Kane, who, say what you like about him, is a world-class striker, especially at this level. So that's something they're going to have to be worried about. Chiellini and Bonucci, you won't find two more experienced players, or a more experienced partnership probably in the tournament than them, and they will have a plan for Kane, I've no doubt. But again, what happens just in front of them, the protection that's offered with the likes of Saka and probably Mount and Sterling racing into those areas, and then Harry Kane drifting and moving and trying to pull defenders apart, Italy have got a lot to worry about. And I think that's what makes me maybe not confident, but hopeful for this England side. I think a lot of people would probably go into this saying that Italy have looked a little bit more dominant. They've looked a little bit more composed. Well, maybe not composed. I think England arguably have that just as much. But it's going to be a case of, are England in a position right now to beat Italy? And I think Gareth Southgate would say the same as I, that yes, they are. And it's the final. It's not a quarter-final or a semi-final, which I'm so accustomed to seeing England in. This is the final of the Euros, and England have a great chance. Now, defensively, England against Denmark were really good. Kyle Walker, he's only good because of his pace. Well, it's an attribute he's allowed, isn't it? I mean, if you see a striker sprint through on goal, you don't go, well, Jamie Vardy's only good because he's quick. It's like that's part of his makeup as a player, right? And Kyle Walker's ability to cover and be there, and also like Kyle Walker is and I don't want Kyle to watch this and be offended. He's a much smarter footballer than I ever anticipated. I didn't know he'd be this good when it came to sort of the sensible things, whether that be moving his midfield, giving a little bit more natural width, playing a little narrower at times, right? Being quick to the ball, being first to the ball very often, and picking up second balls and knowing when to do that, and not exposing yourself in behind or basically hanging John Stones out to dry. And the reason I bring up Walker is because he's got the task of dealing with Insigne in this game. And he and well, it's been Chiesa, right? Chiesa's coming to the side and been fantastic. Those two players, for me, are where the game sort of starts and ends. So, spoiler alert, Kyle Walker would be in my side. And in fact, before we talk through why I'm selecting this team, and again, it's different to other sides. So I would go for Jordan Pickford in goal, Kyle Walker, John Stones, Harry Maguire, and Luke Shaw. So a back four. You probably guess where this is going. I would then play Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips just in front, with Raheem Sterling, Mason Mount, Bukayo Saka, and Harry Kane up front. So yes, I am unchanged again for this game. But if he plays the 5, in my opinion, based on what I saw against Denmark specifically, and if he goes to the 5, I'll make it quite simple. Mount would drop out for me. You'd play Trippier at right back, and then Jordan Henderson for me. And I know what people are going to say, but I had a moment in that first half against Denmark where I thought this game is not too big for Calvin Phillips, but it just felt like Jordan Henderson would have dealt with the pressure of that moment, and the way in which Jordan Henderson plays would have been slightly better than Phillips. If you play the system that, as I say, the 4-2-3-1, I think Phillips slots straight in there. And there's still an argument for Henderson, but I think if you're playing a bit more of an isolated 2 in the centre, you want someone who's going to be available a little bit more. And that's, for me, it's just experience for me. I think in 5 years we'll look at Calvin Phillips and go, oh, what a player, and what a breakout moment he had in the Premier League for Leeds, of course, and then at the Euros. But Jordan Henderson's ability to make everyone's life that little bit easier by moving into positions that offer passes quicker, for me, gives him the edge in that specific example. I don't think Phillips has quite got that. I think the fitness argument for me is kind of gone now. Henderson's come on in a few games and looked absolutely fine. Harry Maguire has played the entire tournament since he's come into the side and looked really good. These players not playing since February. Like Jack Grealish should play 200 minutes since February. No one's really talking about it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's Jack Grealish, you've got to start him. I wonder actually if Southgate has thought, I don't quite know how fit that man is, and that's why he's not been the pivot to everything that's happened. And it's interesting that you go into this game not playing Sancho or Grealish or Foden. Some people would have you starting all 3 of them behind Harry Kane, but the way in which there's like a workman-like efficiency to England is something, again, I've not seen before. And going back to it then, the reason the 4 to me have to exist is because of the way that Italy move between the lines, and the way that Chiesa and Insigne, cause problems. And that to me is where England's game plan has to be watertight. Now that might have Declan Rice dropping in, and again they did it against Ukraine a little bit where they played a 4-2-3-1, but actually, and I think proudly bring up the graphic for me, they played that 4-2-3-1 sort of with the ball sometimes and often without it as well, but actually they sat deeper into a 5. Mount played and helped alongside Harry Kane, and then you had Phillips do a lot of the work in between. And that is basically to restrict what was quite a fluid Ukrainian attack. It wasn't particularly effective, but believe me, that's what it looked like in the way it operated, just with 2 players. So with 3, with players that have got a lot of speed, a lot of pace, a lot of dynamism, and the ability to switch sides at times and play more centrally, and Immobile will fill in all the gaps. He's brilliant at that. His work rate is second to none. Then England have to be very, very aware of that. I'm terrified of situations where Insigne is one-on-one with John Stones, or Chiesa is one-on-one with Harry Maguire. Kyle Walker's not quite there, and in times of possession, that's why I think the system has to change a little bit, and you have to have those moments where you're doubling up on those creative players in forward positions, because we've seen in this tournament so far, they've got this fantastic ability to sprint forward, to drive a defender back, to cut inside and finish it off. And England, again, that to me is where Italy's strengths lie. And Mobley's had a decent tournament. He's not had a sensational tournament. And you could arguably say the same for Kane. I think the winner of this tournament is going to be the team that gets the most out of their key man in that forward area. And Harry Kane is coming more into form, and it feels like it might be him. I don't know. I think if I was a neutral, I'd think that Kane was gaining a little bit of momentum despite missing the penalty to score. After that, who cares about the missed penalty at that point, right? You've got the goal. It's going to be a really tight game. It's a really interesting game. I don't necessarily know what Gareth will do. I think it's more likely that he plays the 4 because it's worked successfully against Denmark, who have played the 5, and It's equally worked against the 4 at the back systems we've seen as well. I think the loss for Italy at left back is big. I think Emerson's going to come in and do a pretty good job. I think Saka and Emerson are going to have a real good battle on that side. And if Raheem Sterling can continue the form he's had all tournament, then again, England have a really good chance. And stopping England from having the control is going to be Italy's biggest task. They can't do it against Spain. Spain are almost impossible to do it against. They play like 10 pivots on a football pitch, and without a goal scorer, it's not particularly effective. I actually thought they would overcome Italy. I thought they would have enough chances, but that didn't happen. They didn't have a Harry Kane. And England's big thing this tournament, and I've talked about it in these videos, is having that control, knowing where to map out your team and then keep the ball. We saw in the final 10 minutes against Denmark, they did it supremely well, but doing it under pressure of a final, of a big moment. And that might be one of the arguments for Henderson, is there aren't a huge amount of players in this side that have had these big one-off game moments and had success in them, right? Other than maybe recently with some of the Chelsea boys, you go through the rest of the squad. Harry Kane has had disappointments at this level. Even John Stones recently in the Champions League, and Kyle Walker, that'll be relatively fresh in their mind. But players like Pickford won't have been there quite yet. Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire, you might say the Europa League. To me, this is a slightly higher level. I'm sure the pressures were similar, but again, it's a big moment and you've got to have a calm head. And that's why, again, with Rice and Phillips particularly, neither of those two players, again, they'll have had big games for their club sides, but you get what I'm saying. This is a European Championships final. This is one of the biggest games in the world. That's my only concern, that it overawes England a little bit. But if they can show the same competence and composure that they have in the rest of the tournament, they have a real chance here. And I would predict an England win. And I know that seems biased, but you said that when I said they'd be in the final. So if you still think it, I'm probably not going to change your mind. It's going to be fascinating. I mean, the Wembley advantage, I think, is real. I don't think it's England's fault. I think it's UEFA's fault. I think having a tournament over 8 nations is stupid. I was going to do a big swear there, but it's stupid. You could have asked me that 5 years ago. I can't wait. And of course, I'll bring you a review either tonight or tomorrow morning. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, I'm so proud of them, and I'm so proud to have this team represent my country this tournament, and I can't say that too often as an England fan. So it's coming home, and I'll see you after it's all over. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I look forward to hearing them, and yeah, Gareth, do what you want to do. I can't wait.